A No More StinkyMonkeys.com production. We're back. In 1981, I remember a crazy movie coming out called Polyester. That movie gets 4.5 bananas out of 5 from the StinkyMonkeys.com website. It starred a transvestite named Divine and a 1960s matinee idol named Tab Hunter. When you entered the theater, they gave you scratch and sniff cards and called it Odorama. You would wait for a number to appear on screen and scratch the card to see what Divine was smelling. Critics at the time hated it and called it another piece of trash by the king of trash directors, John Waters. Yes, the same John Waters who 7 years later would make a great comedy about racism and acceptance called Hairspray. But as Hairspray proved, Waters was just way ahead of his time. In the last 10 years, Hairspray was made into a Broadway musical which garnered tons of praise, and a movie musical with John Travolta in Divine's defining role as Edna Turnblad. But in the 70s and 80s, critics weren't on board with Waters yet, and neither were members of the movie-going public. Waters' films were definitely an acquired taste, and since they lacked society's standards for good taste, they were relegated to the underground audiences that watched midnight movies. The way college radio helped build the early careers of U2 and REM, midnight movies built the early careers of many of our favorite actors and directors from today. Unfortunately, while Waters' career eventually merged into the mainstream, Divine died before his career could take off. And what a funny actor he was. My wife, as well as much of the world, was first introduced to Divine on All in the Family as Edith's cross-dressing gay cousin. His appearance led up to one of the most upsetting episodes when he gets brutally murdered by a gang of gay bashers, and Edith loses her faith in God. The episode still holds a lot of power, and so does this early 80s film. If Polyester's story was traditionally told, it would be much harder to deal with and very hard to laugh at. The story of a mentally abused housewife with a belligerent pig of a husband and two selfish, spoiled, delinquent kids is the stuff of a Lifetime movie. Unless you make that housewife a 6'2", 300-pound man in a dress, then it's hysterical. Divine plays Francine, a sweet, devout Catholic and a 50s-style housewife in suburban Baltimore who treats her husband like gold. When her husband Elmer puts a loud alarm clock up to her ear and yells, "Hey, you big oaf, get out of bed and make me breakfast," you laugh at the absurdity of the moment, but in the back of your mind, you still want Elmer to pay for his horrible behavior. He owns a porno theater and has protesters outside his home who throw eggs at poor Francine, and even has affairs with his employees. Francine Fishpaw is the least silly of all the characters' names. There's her slutty daughter, Lulu, her foot fetishistic son, Dexter, Lulu's degenerate boyfriend, Bobo, and a John Waters favorite, Edith Massey, as Cuddles Kavinsky. Cuddles wins the lottery and is now getting ready to have her debutante ball, even though she's close to 50 years old. Of course, Cuddles looks like she was just saved from living in a box in a bus depot and has 2 missing front teeth, so she slurs her words like a drunk and makes you pee when she commands her limo driver Hines to do anything. But she and Francine are old friends, so Cuddles would do anything to help her. I nearly spit out my Pepsi when Francine tells her in that high-pitched whine of hers, "Oh, Cuddles, you're too old to be a debutante." As if age was the only factor. The movie's main selling point in '81 was the Odorama, a parody of all the gimmicks used to entice people to theaters back in the day, like Universal's Sense Around. The key sense for Divine's Francine is her dog-like sense of smell. When her nose starts acting up, sniffing at the air uncontrollably, a number would flash in the corner of the screen. Sometimes it was a nice smell like flowers, and other times it would be a skunk in the park. I kept waiting for dog do. But I think I had my Waters movies mixed up. In an earlier film, Divine is filmed eating real dog shit. I can definitely see why this movie became a midnight hit. It's the type of comedy that you can watch again and again because of the absurdity and originality that runs throughout. When Lulu is pregnant and threatens to have an abortion, Francine calls up a convent for help. 2 nuns pull up minutes later like the Geek Squad and immediately open their trunk. They go inside, grab Lulu, and throw her in the trunk to be reprogrammed at their retreat. Scenes like this mix the disturbing with the hilarious in ways Waters was famous for. Now that kind of filmmaking is common, with the Farrelly brothers probably being the most successful at it, and Family Guy pushing it to its greatest extremes. But Waters was very daring for his time. The joke of using Tab Hunter as Francine's new lover would be lost on modern audiences, but people in 1981 who were still fans of the old Gidget movies and other matinee favorites were shocked when Hunter took the role. When he kisses and makes love to Divine, you'll notice the camera trickery, revealing that he isn't even close to doing these things. I like how it wraps up the story in 90 minutes. Episodic comedies without strong plot lines tend to wear out their welcome if they creep towards 2 hours. 90 minutes works best for almost all comedies, and Waters knows how to leave him before he's asked to leave. If you want to have a great time, pop open a couple of beers and sit back on the couch for Polyester. You might get a bit grossed out, but I promise you'll be repeating lines from this movie for days after. Oh, poor Francine. Poor Francine. From The Predator.